Welcome to the Empower House podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Bryant, founder of Empower House, the Brunch Club events, business club mentor, twin mum, and coffee enthusiast. I've been hosting my networking event, the Brunch Club, featuring incredible speakers for 7 years. Now I'm bringing the Brunch Club experience and more to your ears. Come and join the community. Find us on Instagram at empower.house.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we have a personal favorite of mine, beautiful Courtenay duBois. She is a relationship expert, a sensuality strategist, the Brisbane Brunch Club host, and a newly published author. Welcome.
Thank you, my love. You're a favorite of mine too, you know that.
Love it, love it. First of all, congratulations on your new book. Tell me all about it.
So what it is to give people permission, as it says in the title. So the intention behind this was when we're going through life and you know, as adults, I'm not a big fan of adulting. I'll just preface it by saying this, but when we get to adulthood, we get into a state of flux and we're going through the motions day to day. And there's a lot of fears that come up about providing for ourselves, providing for our families. And sometimes we don't really get the gut check moment of, am I actually happy? And that could be for a myriad of reasons. You know, we don't have time to slow down. As I said, we're providing for ourselves and our families, all of that type of thing. But especially with, you know, if you've suffered any type of trauma or if you've been through any experiences that aren't entirely positive, you may have repressed emotions that you haven't really brought to the front, and they are going to affect every single decision you make in your relationships, in your career, across your whole life. So if they're left unchecked and you don't ask yourself, well, am I actually happy? Are there any negative patterns repeating? You know, am I experiencing the same thing in my life again and again and again? If you don't give it that awareness and you don't start to look into those things, it can make your life operate on autopilot in a really negative way. So the intention behind this was to just give people that moment of pause and give people that moment of, you know, are you actually living the way you want to live? Because if you're not, what stories are you telling yourself as to why you can't?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about giving them that pause and that awareness of, okay, this is why I think I can't, and how can I possibly shift it so I can be much happier?
Love that. So permission to create a life of freedom in mind, in body, and in bed. I already have this and I really enjoyed. I skipped through to your acknowledgements and I really enjoyed what you did there because not everybody does. Do you want to tell everybody what you did in your acknowledgements? Because I thought it was fire.
So a big part of this, I think, for myself, and I didn't realize it until it was out and I was experiencing all of the emotions associated with that. I actually wrote it partly to own my life and my story and what I had been through. And whilst I had done all of this work and I'm now trained in what I do and all of that, I was still having emotional responses. I was aware of them, but I was still having emotional responses of all the things that were happening. So when I was going through and I was acknowledging, you know, all the people that led to that, I had to acknowledge all the things that happened. And I had to acknowledge all of the people that caused those periods of trauma and those periods of being broken and suffering through this emotional turmoil, this physical turmoil. So yeah, I was thanking them.
I've got chills again. I have goosebumps and I love it. And I've met your family. I've been to your wedding. I love your husband, all beautiful people. But yes, thanking all of these people who had done harm. I was like, that was just next level. I love it. And I think it's a really important part of that life check that you're talking about. Actually saying, you know what, thank you for that lesson.
Yeah.
I don't wish to repeat it, but thank you for that lesson and bye.
Yeah. And it's not about, you know, thanking the person is not about excusing their behavior. And that's something I go right into in the book is, you know, you can thank them for bringing something to your awareness. In my case, I was thanking people for bringing awareness to the fact that I didn't value myself very highly. And it's that awareness of that that brings the power back. And it's that awareness that brings the power back to go, this isn't good enough. This is not good enough. This treatment isn't good enough. This job isn't good enough. Not because I'm better than anyone or whatever, but I deserve more. I want more for my life. And that's what people just don't get. And when you're seeing patterns repeating in your life, this is such a massive indicator. Like, who's allowing the pattern? You are. On some level, you are allowing the same type of people. If you keep attracting narcissists, who's picking up the goddamn phone? So it's it's almost a tough love stance that I take with a lot of my clients as well, in that, you have to have that person to kind of slap you around a bit and go, I'm holding you in love in all of this and I will never, ever drop or judge you. But what's driving this? Why do you feel like they're allowed to talk to you that way? Why do you keep signing up for it? And that's the unconscious drivers that I start talking about in the book as well, where those negative emotions come from. It's the drivers from the emotional center, from the unconscious mind. And that's where we get a little bit techy, but I think it's explained okay in the book. You can give me constructive criticism if it's not, but I think it's all right to follow.
It feels like a conversation that I have with you anyway. So it's such a great book. I really love it. Congratulations.
Thank you, my darling.
In mind, in body, and in bed. Why those three?
So your mind is obviously where it all starts. So what we think about ourselves, we project out into the world. What we might not understand is that every single cell in your body, every tangible physical cell, we're all made up of energy, we're all made up of cells, etc. But every single cell stores the same emotional information. So if you are suffering physical pain, and this is the crazy part, if you are suffering, intense, I've had back issues over the last month, and it's purely been because there's so much change going on that everything around my sacral chakra and my energy center there is a little bit unbalanced. So you have to understand that, yes, it starts in the mind, then it goes to the body. And then the manifestation of that, where it shows up the most, is in your romantic relationships if something's off balance, because that's where we're the most vulnerable usually. So if you can't see it within yourself, if you can't look in the mirror and look at yourself objectively, the quickest way for you to see whether everything's working for you or not working for you is by looking at your closest relationships, is by looking at your physical ones, because that's the biggest indicator. That's the quickest indicator, if you're not self-aware, that if you see dramas in your intimate life, it's a pretty good barometer.
Amazing. On that, your beautiful husband, how did you guys meet?
My husband. So when I was going through, and there's a lot more information on what I was going through in the book, but when I was recovering from all that I had been through, and I had complete tunnel vision on my healing. And I was like, I'm going to go to Sydney. I'd had a couple of NLP sessions and something just hit home about them. And he was here in Balimba that I saw, Phil, he's amazing. But I had a couple of sessions with him and it was enough for me to go, okay, there's something to this. I need to know a lot more. So I signed up to actually become a practitioner, and I went to Sydney to complete the hypnotherapy and timeline therapy training down there. And I walked into the room, and he's this beautiful man, and my husband's like 6'5", so you can't miss him. He's this you see his smile before anything else. He lights up the room, and he's just this incredible, beautiful man, angel in human form. And I walked in and I looked right at him. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. So, because I was like, no, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. I completely dismissed it, and I said hello and was polite, but just kept on walking, sat down and focused. I wasn't here for romance. Anyway, a couple of days later, we were doing a particular exercise and a lot of my emotions started bubbling up, and I got to a point where I was practically catatonic. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. They were asking me questions and I physically couldn't make myself respond. I was just locked in this emotion of fear. And he was the one that came and sat down next to me and taught me how to breathe again. And yeah, ever since then, it was, yeah. I wouldn't say love at first sight because I'd completely dismissed it. But yeah,
A little bit of lust at first sight, maybe.
it was definitely that. But yeah, then he had to wait a while, obviously, because they had professional courtesies around that. And he was living in Sydney and I was living in Brisbane. But a few months later, he sort of sent me a text and said, "Look, would you be open to me flying up to take you to dinner?" And the rest was history.
I love that. You guys got married
Sexy. It is a bit sexy. Pardon?
You guys got married almost a year ago now.
We did.
So one text and a cheeky little flight.
Yeah.
And it worked really well.
I think it was because, yeah, I was working in real estate at the time. That was my job before I got into this. And I finished on a Saturday and went to meet him at one of the hotels, and he was on the rooftop bar with a bottle of Verve, which is my favorite champagne, and 2 glasses, and just standing there the same way, straight up. He's done martial arts, so his posture is amazing, and he smiles like this. And I was like, oh, so
Very
he
sexy.
got me.
I love it. Line and sinker.
Got me. He got me. But look, it was not, and this is what I want people to know. It wasn't a fairy tale at all. It sounds like one when I tell it, but there was so much that came up with us living in different states, with me having an ex-boyfriend who had a whole different family in a different city that I didn't know about. You can imagine living away from your partner and having that as history, all the emotion that comes up, all the suspicion, all the mistrust that he didn't earn, but that I was still carrying. So it took a lot of work on both sides to get through that together. And that's what separates a great relationship from a shit one that doesn't survive, is that work.
Amazing. And you guys are such a beautiful couple.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
I think we have just as many times where we want to kill each other as love each other to death. But yeah, we talk and we communicate and we respect each other, and that makes all the difference.
it does. It does. And you just mentioned that you were in real estate before. You've had a lot of different jobs.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
So I'm a manifesting generator. If you've done human design, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I highly recommend it, and I can suggest some great people for you. I like to have a lot of different experiences, and this has led me into every ounce of trouble that I've ever gotten into and we have that in common, I know. This has led me into some incredible experiences that I would never have been through, good and bad, if it wasn't for that trait. I've always kind of just gone for it and asked questions later. And real estate was one of the things that, I loved property. I loved people. I loved everything about it. And I saw the opportunity and jumped. And that happened. I was a makeup artist for a time. I worked in high fashion for a really long time. I've kind of ended up in, and this is pertinent to my story as well, I've gone after careers that have been all sparkly and shiny and amazing and whatever. And then I've gotten there and it's an absolute shit fight. And it's completely fake. And that's not to say that everything I've ever done is fake, and the people that I worked with haven't been amazing. They have. But there was this whole undercurrent of, anxiety and stress and all of these things. I thought it was all beautiful and everyone was having a good time, but there were a lot of facades and there was a lot of coping mechanisms that happened behind the scenes. And that's where, a lot of my clientele again sort of come to me saying, life looked like this and it's completely unfulfilling. What am I doing wrong? And that's a big part of it. So it's led to me being able to hold them in that experience because I've seen it myself and I've been at the mercy of it too.
Yes, yeah. I love that you say in the book and outside of it as well that you've been there and you've done it, and therefore don't judge people for it. And as you say, you can hold them in that experience because you have been through a lot of it yourself.
Yeah.
Is that what drew you to being a relationship coach and also working with a lot of these really high performing people?
100%. Because part of my experience was because I had successful parents. They grew up very poor, but they made a lot of money. So I was comparing myself to that, which is number one reason that I can relate to a lot of people in those environments. Number two was, okay, when you get there, everybody's got the facade on. You can't talk to anyone. You know, to speak as is to be seen as a whistleblower, or is to be seen as, you know, a troublemaker, or is to be seen as vulnerable. And then if you're in that environment, vulnerability is considered weakness a lot of the time. So your opposition might get leverage, or your ex-wife or your ex-husband might get leverage in the courts over your children. Like it's a really nuanced environment to be in, because you feel like you have all of this bubbling under the surface, but anybody you tell can then use it against you. And money does some really horrible things to people, you know, in terms of families and you know, business partners and things like that. So if you're in a high profile or very visible position, sometimes it's not safe to be yourself. And because I've been in those positions where I haven't been able to be honest about what I was going through and what I was feeling, I understand how intensely emotional that situation can be.
Amazing, amazing. So I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you wish that you could teach everyone instantly?
I wish I could teach them to be aware of everything. You know, I think, you know, sometimes people say ignorance is bliss, but when it comes to emotions, the power is in the awareness. So I'd give them the ability to see themselves objectively, not through their own lens, you know, and this is what people don't understand about life too. And I go into this in the book as well, is all of your experiences have shaped the lens that you see your life and everybody else's life through. So if you have certain experiences, they'll color how you see your present reality. So unless you wipe that lens clean and become aware of everything that's kind of filtering that, you're going to experience the same thing over and over again. So if I could teach anybody one thing, it would be to wipe the lens clean, which is essentially what I'm actually doing throughout my work, is I'm teaching people to wipe the lens clean and to see reality for what it is, which is a manifestation of the mind and something that you can control.
Amazing. And so I know you're a woman who likes to take on many projects at once. We've released a book this year you're working on.
So I've already got the second book in my head.
Excellent.
I'm feeling it's a series. So the second book's already starting, and it's going into more of what we were actually just talking about, you know, the visibility and that type of thing. I've done a little bit of public speaking. Obviously, this is how we met. But I'm looking to do a lot more of that. So I find that when I am vulnerable and when I start telling my story, and when people can actually connect to me, I find that it lands a lot in a lot more real way, and that allows people to be vulnerable themselves. So the more I can do that, I was, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, you know, if I'd be sitting on stage in front of thousands of people, I would have been absolutely terrified. But now I'm like, right, where's the biggest one I can get to? Because the more people see me being vulnerable and the more people I make that okay for, the more happier people we're going to have in this world. And I think we need it.
For sure. You always share a lot about your story quite candidly as well. As you mentioned, you've spoken at a couple of my events, the International Women's Day event, and also at the Brunch Club. And now you're the host in Brisbane as well.
Which I love. I love it.
Speak, and it comes out, and without shame and without holding yourself back. Is that something that you're teaching your clients how to do as well? Is that what brings them through to you, do you think?
Yeah. So 100%, 100%. Because if you The reason we feel such intense emotion around things is because the mind is trying to protect us. So the mind is trying to remind us not to get ourselves into that situation. So it will create more of a perception of threat through anything that it thinks it recognizes. So in order to stop that, you have to acknowledge what happened in the past. And since I acknowledged what happened to me and learnt what I needed to, and we do this using timeline therapy as well, since I completed my past, learnt what I needed to, the emotional attachment shifts and it breaks. And so that loop that you're living in of feeling bad about it or feeling negative in any way about it, shameful, scared, anything like that, through that process, you diffuse the emotional attachment. And that's what I'm doing when I'm speaking about this, whether it's on stage, on podcasts, wherever. I'm teaching my clients how to diffuse the emotional attachment, learn what they need, take the power back, and use it as fuel instead. Because that's what I've done. I've looked at what happened. I've gone, okay, well, that's what I needed to learn here, and that's what I needed to learn here. And once that switch is flipped, it's a case of, okay, so what did I go through that? What purpose has that given me in my life to help other people?
Mhm.
And that's why you find me doing what I'm doing.
Love it.
Yeah.
For those playing at home, timeline therapy. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So timeline therapy is basically it's been called regression therapy. Mine is a little bit different to regression. So I will never sort of take you back to a time and drop you in an emotion or a situation. And I think that's what a lot of people fear in terms of regression therapy, is that they have to relive the thing all over again. And regardless of what you believe, generations, past lives, genetic information we know is passed through family, so is emotion. So whether you believe esoterically, if you also have past lives in there, it can get pretty jumbled and you can be carrying a lot that maybe isn't yours. So how timeline therapy differs is we're the observer. So I'm holding you in the space, we're doing visualizations, and we're just having a look around your life and around the emotions that are presenting themselves in the form of events, people, whatever's coming to your mind is perfect. And we're diffusing the emotions of that situation. We're learning what we need to and we're letting it go. And I've got a client who's going through at the moment, and she just did her first one last week. I will never tire of the response that they come back with after we go through the first intervention, because it really is mind-blowing. It's such a safe and connected and holistic experience. And it's such a relief, because it takes so much energy to hold that in its state that it is, that when you release it, it's just, you're either exhausted or you feel like you can run a marathon. You can go either way. But yeah, but it's a huge relief, because your body's been trying to remind you of this for so long. And yeah, it's a very, very powerful process, and I'd recommend it to anyone.
And it is just a once off, or you do this over and over again?
So usually I'll do the 6 major negative emotions. So anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt are the emotions that I focus on. If anything comes up, I also do an analysis previously to doing any of this. I will go through and I'll do an analysis of your history, and we'll talk about any major significant events and everything. And I'll kind of get a map as to how you've created your current reality and the emotions that are presenting and the presenting problem. Based on that, we'll go through the negative emotions. And then if there's anything else that I think, that we need to look at, I'll go into that as well. But that's why my work is 100% bespoke for every single person that comes across my door, because I don't know what's made up you. I have to find that out. And I'm never going to have the entire concept until you start bringing it forward for me. So it's my job to ask questions and to start to formulate that map for you. And then it's up to you to dictate where we need to go.
Amazing. I know we have a mutual friend contact who met you through the brunch club, and she sings your praises everywhere because you helped change her life. And those are her words, not mine. She had a phobia of heights, but also wanted this beachfront apartment with a view, which means a high floor and all of that sort of stuff. Is this something that you went through with her to do those things, or did you treat phobias differently?
No, phobias, we have a couple of ways that we can look at it. And again, it depends on the person and how they're constructing the phobia in their head. So what their strategy is to deal with that emotion. What we did with her was the major negative emotions, as I said. Other things came forward. So we actually ended up working together for about a year, which is what I suggest that I do with most clients so that they don't relapse. And it doesn't mean it needs to be this intense thing, after you've done the first 6 weeks, it's then every couple of weeks, every fortnight, and then every month after that in phase 3. And all that does is reinforces the new programs that we've created, the new neural pathways. So when we worked together, we did the acute, we dealt with the acute presenting problem, which was everything you've mentioned. Then the next phase was, okay, without that, what do you want to create? So then we created the new neural pathways in phase 2. And then phase 3 was the repetition and the coming back to center. Whenever new layers of the onion came up, that was when we harpooned them and was like, and we're like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. We're keeping going this way. And the integration, the reignition of who that person is, you can see the evidence of when you look at her. She's just amazing.
So she's had a career change, she's released a book, she's doing all the things. She got the beautiful apartment, and it all happened within a really small space of time, within 12 months. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
When you were talking, complete life change, without having to blow up your life, without having to burn the bridges and move away and change everything, it's just little incremental changes, because there's no emotional attachment to the old. It's just like, oh, that's what this is now, so that's fine. You don't have to fight against it. It's just a gentle, okay, well, this could be a little bit different, so let's do this. And this could be a little bit different, so let's do that. And then within, as you say, 12 months, a life that looked like this now looks like this. And you just, it's, if we hadn't lived it, it wouldn't be believable. But I'm lucky I've got proof in her and a few others. So
much so. You want to share some other proofs with us?
Yeah, well, I've had, people who have built businesses, who have been absolutely locked in jobs and built businesses and thought that they could never. I've had people that have been comparing themselves to other people in their families, that were really stuck under that. And I find this a lot with people like myself who have had very successful parents. The comparison has been debilitating and they haven't been able to be who they are. I've had people who couldn't conceive, that now are having babies because they've released all the emotional blocks and now have the safety to bring life into their body. So it really depends. I've had people that have broken years, like myself, years and years of abusive, narcissistic, horrible relationships that are now happily single, traveling the world, making relationships on their terms. Doesn't have to be a long-term commitment with a view to marriage. It can be, we have an amazing time together, then we move on. It can be transitional. So it's people, like the book says, having the freedom to create whatever life they want. And it's such a fundamental concept that we are not taught in school, in uni, whatever. We're taught how to fit in. We're not taught to stand out. And we're not taught to live on our own terms. So that's what I'm here doing.
Very special.
I think so. It's special when I see it. It's special when I see the results. It's humbling.
Yeah.
Very, very grateful.
And now you've got more than one way for people to access that. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. So the book was obviously the start of my literary journey. There are courses, there are worksheets, anything on my website. There is so much that you can dive into. Obviously I've got, this incredible podcast where I can talk about things like this. But yeah, get me on the phone. If you're not sure, that's an open invitation to get me on the phone and just talk about your life and what's not making you happy. And then I can help you steer you in the right direction.
Do you offer just one-on-ones, like one-off sessions?
Yeah, so I do strategy session is probably where I would start with anyone. So the strategy session is we have, up to 2 hours to sit on a call like this. We talk about what's happening in your life, and I can give you the perspective from somebody who's objective, which a lot of people don't get, because if you talk to your friends about it, they want to see you happy and safe, and they only get one side of the story, and they won't necessarily have the skills to be able to go, well, actually, you're being a bit of a shit and you're allowing this to go on. If you speak to your family, they just want your best interests at heart. They want you safe, so they'll have an agenda, and they'll have a certain set of beliefs that they're operating from. So the strategy session is really the best way to have an objective look about what's going on and work out what those patterns are. And then from there, I give you a blueprint to go, right, if you want to get from here to here, this is what I would do. This is what, my suggestion would be based on what you're experiencing. So again, not cookie cutter. It's made for you. And that's why I do it the way that I do, one-on-one, because I don't want anybody doing a cookie cutter program and getting lost and being in the same place in a year's time. Life's too short.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to share with us on any of that I haven't asked you already?
Just don't wait. Do not wait.
Do you have a lot of people coming to you when they hit rock bottom? Is that when they, instead of, 10 steps before they hit rock bottom?
And look, one of my favorite quotes is, only when there's enough pain will change occur. So I get that. I get that you have to get to a place, because I did too. I got to a place where I couldn't hide bruises from my family. So I had to fess up that I was being hit. Only when there's enough internal pain will you actually want to fundamentally shift your life and commit to what that takes. One thing, though, that I will tell everybody is what you allow is what will continue. So if you keep allowing people to disrespect you, if you keep allowing yourself to jump from app to app, from date to date, if you keep allowing yourself to eat things that aren't good for you, do things that aren't good for you, exactly like I did, nothing will change. You need someone to hold you accountable for the things that you say you want for your life. And that will not be a friend who just wants to cuddle you, or, your mum or your dad that just wants to keep you safe, or your partner who just wants things to go smoothly and whatever else for your best interests. But sometimes you need the devil's advocate. And I play that role really well with it doesn't have
Very
to be
much
scary.
Have to be. It should hurt a little bit.
It just, the awareness can hurt a little bit because people feel like they're at fault. But that's the perception that we shift as well, when you're working with me, is that you can be accountable for everything in your life without being at fault for everything in your life. When we talk about child abuse, and I've been through that as well, when we talk about, not through my parents, they're amazing, but I was in a position where somebody took advantage of me as a child. So when we talk about fault, there's no fault of that child. The only accountability they have is that they were physically in that place at that time. And once you understand the difference in that, you can go, right, my accountability is, as I said before, that I'm letting those people into my life, that I'm entertaining those patterns. And it's about, okay, what's the driver of that then, so that you can stop? And it's about dismantling those drivers that helps people break lifelong patterns.
Are there some common red flags for all of this?
Look, there are negative emotions. If you are feeling negative emotions on a regular basis, ask yourself why. Ask yourself what they are trying to show you, because as humans, you look at babies and you look at your beautiful babies. Nobody comes into this world with all of this heaviness, with all of this judgment and all of this fear and anger and sadness and shame. Nobody comes in with that. So it's about looking at what has been piled on over a lifetime and what that has meant, what story you're telling yourself about what that's meant about you. So all of my abuse could have meant that I wasn't worthy of a beautiful marriage, the beautiful marriage that I have now. But it was the shift in that to go, well, no, just because I've been through that, it doesn't mean I'm that person. So that once the story shifts, your life shifts. It's a really simple concept, but it's hard when it's you because you can't see yourself from the outside. So hence the objective devil's advocate that I play.
I love that. Okay. I have some questions for you. Having been to the Brunch Club and as the host, you're already very familiar with this exercise. I wanted to bring some of the Brunch Club vibes to the podcast. And so you will remember we have the silver cards, and it's part of our connection time during the event. So these cards have different questions on them. Some of them are deep, some of them are lighthearted and funny. There's a whole range of things. So I've got 3 questions for you.
Far away.
First one is, you have a magical time machine. Where do you travel and why?
I know this is going to sound super material, but I travel to future get lotto numbers, and I'll tell you why. It's not for self gratification. It genuinely isn't. Of course, I want, a house and beautiful car and everything. We all want those things. So you'll be lying if you say you don't. But I can do more with more resources. I can reach more people. I can create more courses. I can bring more people on. I can teach more people. So that's probably what I would do, is give myself as many resources as I could to get this thing out, get this awareness out into the world. I'd obviously look after my parents and pay off their houses and things. That would all be lovely. But this is the type of thing that if everybody had this awareness, we'd be living in a very different world. So that's where I would go and why.
Such a great segue into the next question that I have here, actually. A genie grants you 3 wishes, but none of them can directly benefit you. What are your 3 wishes?
My first would probably be, this is really interesting because I've been pondering this actually with a very good friend of mine this morning. I would usually say no hunger, no lack, no suffering. However, we were talking about this morning, and I truly believe that humankind is in a phase at the moment. I think we're in an evolutionary phase and we're all moving forward at every point. But I think we're in the phase at the moment that the human cannot experience unconditional love without the lack before it. They can't experience, abundance without the lack, without the financial lack before it. They can't experience the positive without some taste of the negative to give it context. So that kind of harpoons my 3 that I was thinking of, because I think as a species, we still need that dichotomy. We still need that, difference between light and dark and that yin and yang. I think the first one would be awareness. Under that new would be objective awareness. The second one would be the ability to instantly feel what the other person was feeling in any situation. So that goes back to the treat others as you would treat yourself. And the third one would be probably safety for everybody. So probably safety and security, because I don't believe that anybody can do anything inherently amazing from fight or flight mode. So I think just having an inherent feeling of safety and confidence that they were okay, they'd probably be my biggest, knowing that we all need the yin and yang at some point.
Fabulous. Yeah. Okay, last question. You are the star of a brand new reality show. What is the focus of the show and why?
I'm actually working on this. I would, and if anybody is involved in TV, please contact me if you come across this, because I would love to do this. I would actually love to have, if anybody grew up in the 90s, Dear Dolly, Dolly Doctor, people would write in with their issues. I would like to have my own reality show. I've already got the name. People write in and people come on the show with the issues that they're experiencing, and we work through the negative emotions, the drivers, all of that type of thing, and send that out into the universe so that other people can do the same, so that they can follow along on that journey and be made aware of what might be happening in their own life as well. So if anybody's interested in doing that with me, by all means, contact me. But that would be my reality show, is having people with serious, fundamentally awful things, as awful as they were willing to share. And it could be anonymous, or it could be, face to face. And having me solve their problems on air so that other people can benefit from the same thing. Because I guarantee if one person's feeling it, everybody else is.
I feel it. Sounds like fun. Kind of like Bosch, but without the plastic surgery.
Yeah,
Really wrong.
yes. It's like almost like, and if we did a romantic version of it, it's like almost the reverse of maths, or so, I don't know. Just just dealing with the individual human condition would be
so
fun.
all
Am
right,
I geeky on that? It's probably geeky.
fun. I love it. If people want to contact you, where can they find you?
So I've got my own website. So obviously we'll put all the links and everything in here, but my Instagram, I do all of my social media. So if you want to talk to me, jump on my social media, send a message right through to me. And I'm usually probably on Instagram the most. Otherwise just go through my website. You'll find all my links there.
What's your Instagram handle?
Is Courtenay_duBois.
Easy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. When you said you were going to do a podcast, I was incredibly excited, more so than I would be about mine. Because you're just brilliant. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you. Well, that has been a wonderful podcast with Courtenay duBois. Do jump onto her Instagram if you want to talk to her some more, and have a look on Amazon for her book, Permission to Create a Life of Freedom in Mind, in Body, and in Bed. Thank you, Courtenay.
Thank you, darling.
Love you so much. Bye.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please send this to somebody who you think will enjoy it too. Don't forget to leave a review so I can reach more people just like you.